Hi everyone, it is another very beautiful day and welcome to this another edition of I Heard the Ball. My name is Jare Tiamiyu. As you know, I Heard the Ball is that program where we analyze what is happening in the political atmosphere in Osun State, most especially ahead of Osun 2022 governorship elections. And we know we have just less than about 6 weeks to the election, and then we'll look at what the politicians are saying. This is the third episode, as you know, and we'll be doing comparative analysis with what we had in our first week, our second week, and this week. And let's start from here. We have the data here, and you can see them as I also wrote them along with you. This week, we analyzed 92 messages across all platforms. When I say all platforms, I mean the radio, the social media. When we say social media, we mean the Twitter and then the Facebook. And also the traditional papers, the newspapers and the television. We analyze all these issues. We have 92 messages across all these channels. And that's an increase of 2.9% from what we had during the last week. I mean, this week 2. And also like 13.5% from what we had in week 1. Also, we look at it, we have attacks. This is very bad anyway, but we have to tell you that attack increased by 3.88%. As you can see it here. Why candidate, in week 3, this is what we had, the candidate of the Accord Party, Dr. Akin. There was a time he was attacking the candidate of the People's Democratic Party on the issues that we raised in week 2. The issue of I have money, I have dollars. You remember that in week 2. And that is what we had in week 2. Also, their claims, we have 35% is what we have this week. And, compare it to what we had in week 2, which was 54%, and in week 1 we had 55.04%. But that is like a reduction compared to what we've had so far. The defense, we had 9.21% increment compared to what we had in week 2, which was 10.8, and in week 1 we had 6.42. That is what we had in week 1. You can see the comparative analysis in the data that we have there. And also the attacks. As I said, there was an increment in the attack. In week 1, we had 38.53%. You could remember, you can see it there. And also in week 2, we had 34.65%. But in week 3, this week that we are analyzing, we have 55.26%. That is very bad. That is sending some wrong messages to the public that the politicians are actually leaving issues undiscussed and they are now attacking personalities here and there. And before I leave that issue, before I leave the issue of attacks, let me say that we have the highest of the attacks on Facebook, newspaper, and Twitter. You can see the statistics there. That is what we have. Maybe because it is unregulated, as our analyst said all the time. Maybe because of that. That is why it is increased on Facebook and then on social media. And also in campaign speeches, we realize that issues, are being discussed in campaign speeches. Most of them, when they gather people, they try to talk to them, they try to convince them why they are better. But when they go elsewhere, in jingles, in newspapers, reports that we have, and all others, we realize that we have more of the attack. And also, still on this, we have PDP leads in this. The People's Democratic Party, they have like 36% of the attacks. Maybe that is what they have. Then also we have, they have like 52% of the attacks. I don't know. Maybe that is their own strategy. Nobody can say, but it's not a good strategy. We need to know what the party is actually bringing on board, different from what the present ruling party is actually giving the people. But when we have 52% of all the attacks coming from the PDP, and then 72%, that's over 70% of all their claims, all the defenses rather, coming from the All Progressives Congress, the ruling party. Is it because they are the ones receiving all the attacks that they needed to defend themselves or what? But that is what we have there. And also, Labour Party and the Accord Party, what the highest they have is their claims, because you remember that the candidate of the Labour Party last, like 2 weeks ago, during this period we are reviewing, actually said his campaign secretariat was attacked, and also the candidate of the Accord has been moving here and there. He was the one that attacked Senator Ademola Adeleke anyway. You could remember that. I said it earlier. And let's now talk about the issues. So what are they really saying about the issues? Is it just about after the attacks? What issues is actually dominating the campaign during this week that we are reviewing? I would like to say that in the week that we are reviewing, yes, in this week, the campaign issues that people talk about, the economy, they talk about the health, they talk about the security, agriculture, workers' welfare, employment, and the salaries, all that, and infrastructure, then education. We have something that we call others that we have not been able to actually put into one sector or a category. I don't know what is, when people are talking about the youth development, you talk about what they want to do in mining sector, you talk about the tourism, we categorize all those one in others. But I want to tell you that has the highest this week, and that has like 46.0% compared to how it was in week 2, which was 34%, and how it was in week 1, which was 19.34%. Also, we have the issue of health. We have the issue of security. I believe you can see some of the data there. But when we also move to the other side of the studio, where the lead of our analysts will be making sense out of all this data that we have. But before I let you go, I would like to talk about this. Highly informed engagement on policies. Which party has the highest? It is the EP3. Yes, they have like 100%. They have, according to our analysts, they have the 100% of highly informed engagement in the week we are reviewing. Also, moderately informed engagement on policies. APC has 69%, APM 15.38%, and PDP at 7.69%, while the same figure was given to was recorded for Labour Party. Slightly informed, the APC also leads with 77.77%, the PDP 11.11%, the Labour Party and the APM has 55.55% apiece. That is exactly what we have. Let's go to the other side. As I said earlier, this program is a partnership program between Positive Agenda Nigeria and Insight Multilinks Media. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Yes, you're welcome to this side of the discussion. My guest is here, Mr. Adekunle Ademosan, a senior researcher at Positive Agenda Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's start from here. In the week 2, we had about 85 messages. In week 1, we had 60 messages. But this week, we have 92 messages. What does that tell you?
Well, it just tells us that our politicians are not getting it right yet. And there need to be some interventions that would guide our politicians in engaging the people on what are supposed to be the tangible issues about politics.
Okay, let me now start from here. The attacks increased by 3.88% compared to what we had in week 1. And we saw that the candidate of Accord, Dr. Akimogumi, attacked the candidate of PDP, Senator Ademola Adeleke. And then also we realized that in week 1, we had 38.53%. And then in week 2, we had 34.65%. We believe that that was a reduction. But in week 3, it spiked again. Now we have 55.25%. What is really happening? We are looking at that figure. Do you think that the environment, or let me say the atmosphere, is getting saner, or we are actually reducing in the sanity?
No, it only shows us that the environment is getting more tense.
Hmm.
And what drives that is simply that politicians feel that it's only when they become more aggressive that they can put their message to the voters. But we should be able to tell them that no, if you create a very tense environment, you actually scare people away from participating in the process. So we want to implore our politicians to play politics with some measure of decorum so that their message can get to the voters and voters can make informed choices.
Okay. Before I leave that issue of attacks, I would like us to talk about the issues, what actually came about it. We realized that Facebook has the highest attacks were found on Facebook. What do I mean? Facebook, Twitter, and newspapers. Why issues were discussed during campaign rallies. What does that mean? Is it because the Facebook and Twitter are not regulated? But what about the newspapers?
Facebook, apart from not being regulated, is an elitist arena.
Okay.
And people support candidates, can put up anything in their pages. You might be surprised that some of the attacks on social media may not come directly from the gladiators. It comes from their supporters. But you can hardly stop their supporters from posting anything on the social media. But they know that in the media, there is some measure of regulation. I mean, the editor can edit what we are bringing to the people. Although we still saw some level of responsibility on the part of some newspapers, carrying stories that are supposed to be attacks rather than issues.
Okay, but also, I mean, I think that is what's responsible for the newspaper also, having that numbers of the attacks in the week we are referring. But I would like us to see this. The People's Democratic Party is looking to be leading in the attack. As we speak now, during the week we are referring, we realized that out of 100% of the attacks, 52% is from the People's Democratic Party. And the defense, the APC, the All Progressive Congress, the ruling party, defended over 70% of all the defenses that we had during the week. But the Labour Party and Accord, they have claims, What does that tell you? Is it that the PDP is actually attacking, or why do you have the ruling party, the number one ruling party, the number one opposition party, having the attacks and attacks?
It tells us that PDP has become the most aggressive of the parties that are competing in the election. And that is unfortunate because people are beginning to say if PDP is able to get it right, they may have some level of hope in the coming election. But they are not getting it right. The fact that that the findings have shown that they are the one launching the attack means that they are engaging less of issues and they are doing more of attack.
But do you think that may be because they want to tell us that the party here now, the party ruling now, is not doing it better? That's why they are attacking policies.
But do they need to do it through attacks?
Okay.
They don't need to do it through attacks now. There are ways in which you can get a message to the voters other than attacks.
Okay, then while we leave that, we realize that the Labour Party and Accord, they have higher claims compared to did not have attack and other parties. Let's talk about the issues. I see something here, and is that others, when we talk about the issues as we have categorized them in the past episode, we realize that others had 46% this week that we are referring. Compared to issues like the agri, like the infrastructure, the agri with 28.5%, the infrastructure with 35%, and then we realize that if we look at it, fine. Others in the first week, we had 19%. In the second week, we have 34.6%. But now we have 46%. Are we getting it right? The issues they are discussing.
We are not getting it right. It means that the political parties, the candidates and their supporters, they are laying much premium on issues that are not as tangible as tangible issues. Tangible issues will be economy, health, education, agriculture.
And then when we have health, we have 32%.
So if agriculture has 28% and others has 40%, it simply shows that the contestants are not putting enough attention into where attention is supposed to be put.
Okay, but what about the issue of health? We realize that in week 2, we have 30% 42.42%. But in week 3, we have a reduction in the
That's what I'm
discussion
saying.
of that.
Yeah.
32.1%.
That means they are not putting attention into all these issues.
But there is an issue that is actually consistent in the increment. The workers' welfare, salaries, and employment. In week 1, we have 30.3. In week 2, we have 33.3. And then in week 3, we have 36.36. It means, the progression is just uniform. It's just moving. Are we saying that because Osun is civil salary state, that is why civil service state, that is why this issue is just too prominent in the discussion here?
Well, it could be, but we should also have it at the back of our minds that if government increases salaries of public sector workers, it is not too certain that workers can give you victory at the election, because the percentage of civil servants in the state is so minute that you cannot afford to put the interest of the masses at the expense of the welfare of workers. It's a good thing if government attends to the welfare of the workers, but we are saying the workers do not represent the major stakeholders in the state. And so those who are competing for power should know that attention must also be given to things that affect the ordinary people.
Attention must also be given to, and maybe that is why we have security, but do we be talking about the issue of security as much as even more than the agri, as even more than the issue of health? Do you think we should be talking about those ones more than we talking about security more than those issues?
Well, it is not too easy to define what government interest will be. Every government must be able to define its priorities. But we are saying there are core social issues that every government must give attention. So government has to be creative in handling all these
issues. Let's check this aspect of our discussion, the highly informed engagement. According to our analysts, we realize that the highly informed engagement, 100% is APC. No other party actually did that. What will be your advice to other parties? Most especially how to get their communication down to the grassroots, to the needed people. Moderately informed engagement, we have APC 69%, followed by the APM, followed by the PDP 7.69%, and Labour Party. Slightly informed, the messages that are as clear as they are, we have APC also leading, PDP 11, APC 77.77, PDP 11.11, and APM 5.5, Labour Party 5.5. From this data that you have just seen, what can you derive from it, and what will be your message to the political parties?
Well, let me commend APC for coming up with this kind of performance. What it tells us is that APC is actually engaging the people, telling the people what it hopes to do if Itola is re-elected. But I may not be too surprised about the trend of this data, particularly because the Director General of APC Campaign Council, Senator Ajibola Bashiru, on the day of his inauguration, told the world clearly that their campaign is going to be issue-based. So if you have seen this, it only shows that he has actually walked his talk. He has delivered on the promise that he made. So we encourage other political parties to emulate this APC approach, because if you want our election to be thoroughly issue-based, then we should begin to speak to issues, not to attacking personalities.
Okay. Mr. Adekunle Animashaun has been our analyst for some minutes now, and we are discussing the issues as raised in our report, as said. But finally, before I let you go, I would like us to check this data also, which is very important. We realize that infrastructure dominated the campaign speeches in week 3, is followed by health and education. But others, that's, the category of others, dominated the Facebook and Twitter posts by political parties in week 3. But economy was found to be somehow prominent in newspaper discussion. Do you think people will be getting the required messages, considering the fact that infrastructure that no, let me say economy is actually much on the paper. Don't you think the political parties should find a level playing ground, maybe by ensuring that when they discuss this, they also discuss this, especially at the political rallies?
Well, what I deduce from that is that politicians are beginning to be convinced that social media messages are somewhat elitist. And that if you want to get the meat of your message directly to the voters, then you have to go by the conventional media, either radio, TV, newspapers, and the rest of it. And on social media, because Nigeria has very low internet penetration, the messages may not get to the ordinary people at the grassroots if you think too much of social media. But if you go to conventional media, you can put your messages across through local radio, through the television, through newspapers, and people will be able to access your messages.
Okay, sir, before we go, I see this too. I realize it's very important. The PDP, in the issues, the PDP leads when it comes to campaign on orders, the category of orders, with 36.66%. The APC is land leading in social programs, economy, agri, worker salary, infrastructure, and all others, education, health. Labour Party came third in most of the issues and followed by Accord Party. But these are 4 parties. We have 15 political parties participating in this. We have not seen SDB featuring anywhere. We've seen a YPP maybe in like 2. We have the ADP and all others. What do you think this party should be doing moving on? That would be your final shot.
Well, thank you very much. I think we need to understand the material context of electoral competition, which is that political parties need resources to compete. And in the democracy that we do in Nigeria, they call it mega box democracy. Political parties that are resource challenged may not be able to compete at the mainstream. So I think what we have here is a function of parties that have the resources to be electorally competitive. So other parties that are not featuring here may be as a result of challenge of resources.
Are we saying that it takes some funds before they can start posting on their page, on their social media pages? You know, they also move around.
But it takes some funds to engage people that will do the social media work for you. You know, set up your social media team. It takes some resources, and particularly if those who are driving the parties are not well convinced about the import of social media, they may not be ready to commit resources to it.
Okay, if they are not well convinced, that they may not be ready to actually do the job, and that will be the final shot from Mr. Adekunle Animashaun in this edition of Eye on the Ball. Sir, thank you so much for being part of the show for today.
Thank you very much.
Till some other time when I come your way with another fresh edition, and that will be week 4. We'll continue to monitor what is happening, but from all of us at Inside Media and Positive Agenda Nigeria, we tell political parties that please play with the rules. Ensure our atmosphere is getting better and